Hey you guys, what's up? Coach Kelly here coming at you from Kelly Collier Nutrition. I wanted to spend some time today going over the concept of flexible dieting with you. Just in case you've never heard of this, or if you have and don't really get what it's about, or if you're wanting to give it a try and are just looking for those first initial steps and how to get started, this video is for you. So what is flexible dieting? To learn about flexible dieting, we have to know a few simple base principles. So we've got three main macronutrients that make up our foods. We've got protein, we've got carbs, and we've got fats. Now, each of those macros contain a certain amount of calories. So 1 gram of protein contains 4 calories. 1 gram of carbs also contains 4 calories, but 1 gram of fat is gonna contain a whopping 9 calories. I'm telling you this specifically because I want you to understand that as long as you're counting your macros, you're by default also counting your calories. So if we've got a macro goal of 4 grams of protein, 4 grams of carbs, 4 grams of fat, that means that someone is eating 16 calories of protein, 16 calories of carbs, and 36 calories of fat. When you add all of those together, you have 68 calories total. Now, the beauty in flexible dieting and why I love this concept so much is because it levels the playing field on all foods, okay? Food is just food, it's just energy. Every food is gonna have macros and calories, okay? Some food is gonna have a different macro profile and breakdown than another food. So that means that our bodies are gonna metabolize different foods differently depending on what type of macro breakdown they have. That also means that there are certain foods out there that are gonna benefit us and our bodies and supply more nutrients to us and fuel us differently than other foods. So it's up to us to find out what those foods are, but also what foods we enjoy, because as long as we are unhappy and hating our diet and what we're choosing to eat, we're never gonna stick with it long term. I always recommend to my clients following the flexible dieting concept is 80% nutrient dense foods and 20% foods that we enjoy. But as long as we're counting our macros, that allows us to make those decisions for ourselves and choose the foods that we want to fill our diets with. For example, say you're eating a 2,000 calorie diet. Now you can fill that 2,000 calorie diet with 50 grams of protein, or you can fill that 2,000 calorie diet with 125 grams of protein. Your body's gonna respond differently to those two macro breakdowns. It's gonna metabolize your food differently and you'll have different results. I hope this is all making sense to you guys right now because I'm about to dig even deeper into this concept. So, step number 1, where do you start? We have to know where we are currently in order to build a plan and a program to get us to our goals, because otherwise we don't know which direction to go. So I always recommend and I require all of my new clients to start a food log for me. This can be done in any counting application such as MyFitnessPal, which is the most popular. Tracking your food for 7 full days. Everything you're consuming, liquid and solid. This is gonna require you to be extremely accurate. You're gonna have to weigh and measure all of your food. But it has to be done because we have to know where your starting point is, okay? So 7 days of food logs. This will require you purchasing a digital food scale for your kitchen. You can find this on Amazon very easily. It gets shipped out to you in 2 days. I would recommend checking your food scale to make sure that it takes AAA or AA batteries, because oftentimes you'll get a food scale that requires these very unique, almost watch-like type batteries that are sometimes hard to find and you can't just pick them up at a normal grocery store. So as long as your scale only requires either AA or AAA batteries, your batteries are gonna be super easy to find whenever they do go out. Now, people often get confused because there is a free version of MyFitnessPal and there's a paid version of MyFitnessPal. I have never paid for MyFitnessPal in the 6 years that I've been using it, so don't feel obligated to purchase that paid version of MyFitnessPal. There's no reason. You can do everything that you need to do in the free version. Okay, it's been 7 days. You have 7 days of your food logs. Now what? I recommend hopping online and finding a TDEE calculator. You can do this on bodybuilding.com or tdeecalculator.net. Very simple website to use. You just plug in a very small amount of data and click the calculate button. I'm gonna show it to you right now. All right, so I've already got my data points in here for myself. Gender, age, weight, height, and activity level. You can, if you already know your body fat percentage, include that as well, but you don't have to. And you simply just click calculate. Now, you're gonna see a set of numbers here. This 1946 is gonna be your maintenance calories, okay? It will also give you a few options here. Should I be a sedentary person, someone that light exercises, heavy exercises, or if I'm an athlete? So it gives you different versions of your maintenance calories. You can also scroll down here and it will give you a suggested macro breakdown. Now you don't, have to follow these macros. That doesn't necessarily mean that these are correct or these are individual to you, because we are just using an online calculator. These are not humans. These are computers. They don't know us. That's where having a coach comes into play, because your coach is going to be able to help you figure out a macro breakdown that is best for you and your body and that's going to help you reach your goals. I can already tell you right now that any of these three options, for me personally, are too high in protein. I eat much less protein than this. I eat about 1 gram per pound of body weight. So my protein is going to be lower than any of these options. I can also tell you that these carb options and these fat options are not going to work well with me, my body, how my body responds to these macros, and my goals. So that's why it's imperative that you either have a coach helping you figure this out along the way, or you understand your body already and can tell that right off the bat, or you give these a try and then you just self-correct along the way. So you've got your recommended macro breakdown and calorie count from your online calculator. You don't have a coach to help you. I recommend trying out these macros for at least 2 weeks, but you have to be consistent. You have to hit those macros, because otherwise we won't know if they're working properly or not. So you've been tracking your macros and you've been very consistent for 2 full weeks. Now you're ready to adjust. There are a lot of different feedback markers that I take into consideration when adjusting macros with my clients. It's not just weight, it's not just measurements, and it's not just pictures. But shameless plug, that is my job to handle for you. That's what a coach does. They collapse time, they tell you exactly what to do, but they also educate you on why we're doing it. It's also extremely important to take into consideration any health issues or problems that you're dealing with, including hormone imbalances or something like PCOS. That's my job to know and educate you on how to handle nutritionally. Now, week number 1 is typically utter chaos. If you've never done this before, this is gonna be your adjustment period, and that is totally okay. You've gotta give yourself some grace. But we have to get through that adjustment period in order to start that 2 weeks of perfect consistency, right? So I want you to take this time to start studying food labels, looking at different foods while you're in the grocery store and what type of macros they each contain. If you've never tried to track your macros like this, you've probably never taken the time to do so. So this is a wonderful opportunity to start learning about macros. I think it's also really important when first starting out to get a good idea of foods that only contain a single macro. And this is gonna help you when at the end of the day, you feel like I have a lot of protein left, but nothing else. Or I have a lot of carbs left to fill, but I don't have any room in my fats. These are the foods that are gonna help you hit your macros and reach those goals. All right, so I've got some examples for you. I'm gonna run through their macro breakdowns as well. So first up, for fats, we've got coconut oil. This is gonna have 14 grams of fats, 0 carbs, 0 protein. So at the end of the day, if you need a little bit more fat, you can throw some of this onto your dinner. Olive oil, MCT oil, avocado is a great fat source, but it does have a little bit of other macros in it. But those are all great options for single macro foods with just your fats. Protein. Options of protein only are gonna be lean chicken. So when I get chicken, I take a pair of meat scissors and I cut out as much fat as I can possibly get. This helps me just to log it a little bit easier because I know that it's just straight protein and I don't have to worry about how much fat is in there because it's not always gonna be super accurate. Tuna is another great option of just pretty much straight protein. Any super lean cut of meat. Carbs, any type of rice. A single serving of rice is gonna have about 50 grams of carbs. Minimal protein, but if you end up halving your serving or quartering or 3/4ing a serving of rice, it's gonna make that protein almost non-existent. Some pastas are really great options, as well as oats. Oats are gonna have 27 grams of carbs and about 2.5 grams of fat. But again, if you're halving your serving or if you're quartering your serving, that's really gonna make your fat almost non-existent. So these are some really great options for single macro foods that at the end of the day could help you just get even more accurate on hitting your macros. So I've got some tips for you guys when it comes to hitting your macros each day. The number one thing that's gonna get you the best rate of success is pre-planning. Pre-plan a perfect day of your macros in MyFitnessPal before it happens. Do this on a Sunday for the week or do it the night before. This is gonna ensure that you are the most successful because you're basically just gonna wake up in the morning and know exactly what you need to eat that day in order to hit your macros perfectly or as close to perfect as possible. Essentially, you're just creating your own meal plan for yourself, but you get to fill it with the foods that you choose. And then all you've got to do is just follow it. Because I assure you that if you try to just wing it through the day and log as you go, you're gonna end up at night with a ton of different macros that you're gonna need to fill. You're either gonna be over on your protein, but way under on your carbs, and vice versa with your fats, and it's just gonna be a huge mess, and it's gonna be possible to still pull off, but it's gonna be a lot of time and a lot of work trying to figure out how much of what foods to eat that night. All right, tip number 2 for you guys. Pre-log your skeleton meals. These are meals that you eat every single day that you enjoy and that you choose to eat on a regular basis. These can be breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or all 3. I'm a weirdo and I eat the exact same thing every day. Not everybody is like this, most people aren't, but I know that those 3 meals for me are gonna be the exact same throughout the entire week. So I will pre-log those meals and it makes it a little bit easier to fill in the gaps with snacks, and it's just not as much work to hit those macros. This is essentially like a puzzle, and if you look at it like a game, it just makes it a little bit easier and kind of fun because you want to win that game for the day, right? So as long as you plug in your skeleton meals, you can plan out the rest of your day around those meals, and it ensures that you get to eat what you want to eat. And that's the whole point of flexible dieting, right? All right, tip number 3, give yourself time with consistency. It's gonna take time to do this. This is a process. You've gotta hit those macros consistently for 2, maybe even 3 weeks before you know if they're working or not and can make adjustments. Then when you make necessary adjustments, you've gotta be consistent with those numbers for another 2, sometimes 3 weeks. But the most important thing is being consistent. If you're only hitting your macros 5 out of 7 days per week, that's on average 71%, like C-. Do you want C- results or do you want A results? Do you want to know what you're doing is in fact getting you to your goal as quickly as possible? Then just make the commitment. All right, and lastly, You've got to keep track of data as you go because otherwise you won't know if this is working or not. So weight, measurements, pictures, various points of data feedback have to be tracked weekly, sometimes on a daily basis. What gets measured gets changed. Now, this also is not a linear process. You want to focus on trends. Our weight, our measurements, our biofeedback, these things can fluctuate on any given day for various reasons. As long as you have a coach, you have someone's eyes keeping track of all of this. So there you have it. I just covered a ton of information for you guys all about flexible dieting and how to get started and calculating and tracking your macros. So if you have any more questions or want even more information about anything that I've discussed, please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me on social media, any of my platforms. I am here, I am available for you to help.